And I came to Austin and was very pleased to find that Vulcan on 29th Street had a lot of the same sort of attitude. That it did have this approach to cataloging and displaying the films that showed immediately where their head was at. Because a lot of video stores you go in and there's like action, adventure, drama, it was broken down in such a way that, the director's wall is justly famous, and that's a thing that I Love Video picked up on later too, is having, the director's films on the wall. So if you go in and you say, well, I'm looking for The Godfather, they don't say, well, go look in drama or whatever. They say, go look on the director's wall, Coppola. And I would hear that again and again when I'd be in the store. People were like, I can't find, Gone with the Wind. It's like, whatever. And then also their cult section was arrayed, and their horror section were arrayed with little mini director's walls. So in the cult section, Vulcan Video on 29th had an Ed Wood, section, Russ Meyer section, Ray Dennis Steckler section, Doris Wishman section. I'm trying to think, just since this is for posterity, what other sections they might have had. I'll think of the others later, I'm sure. A Larry Cohen section. So all these great sections that they had that, not only is this really helpful when you're trying to go through these filmographies, it also says so much about the soul of this video store. And the fact of the matter was, it wasn't Diane, the owner of the store, that was putting this forward so much. It was the employees who really had kind of free reign for doing this. And a guy named Houston Smith, who was working at the store at the time, was really, as far as I could pinpoint at the time, was really kind of the guy who was managing the cult section in this sort of really kind of opinionated, informed way as a scholar. I really kind of began to know people who worked at video stores and respect them as scholars. And that was huge for me. And I would have loved to have worked at Vulcan. I applied a couple times, but I just wasn't. I didn't have I would apply at the wrong times or whatever. I don't know. Or maybe I just wasn't good enough. I don't know, possibly. It still rankles. But I began to, in the way that some people might say, oh, wow, this film writer that I really respect, or this film professor, the legendary film professor who did all this stuff. I would feel that way, I would feel starry-eyed from afar about my favorite video store clerks. Not every clerk, but just the clerks that really seemed to just have it together. Houston was the first of those people that I knew, and I knew many others. Ended up hiring one of those star scholars many years later, Jasmine Moreno, who worked at Vulcan. And she was one of these scholars who really had it. Tommy Swenson, who had been one of these much later, and later ended up sort of succeeding me at programming at Draft House, and now has moved on to back up to Seattle. But he said something really interesting about programming, because he was being hired as a programmer, and one of the most immediate routes to becoming a film programmer, which is the job that I do now, is working at a video store. And he said everybody, whether or not you work in a video store, has to have their video store years, which is the years where you're watching 15 movies a week. You're becoming so acquainted with these movies, you're rewatching movies, you're learning to talk about movies, you're learning to recommend movies. Those are the video store years that prep someone for becoming a film programmer. So all those sort of scholars who came through Vulcan were so important to me.